Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Developing a Proper Worldview. Excuse me. This will be episode, hold on a second here. I think it's 39. Let me just double check. Uh, episode 40 actually. We made it to 40. Um, so we're going to be continuing on with that last volume, the last DVD from Creatures That Defy Evolution. We're on volume number 3, and that last volume was a little bit longer than the previous two, so I had divided up into two videos here. As always, this is just a reminder, if you just happen to catch this randomly, make sure you go back and watch these in sequential order. They're done with a purpose and a plan, and it's really just to take you along the same journey that I went through in coming to what I think is a correct worldview, understanding how this world is under the control of Satan and the direction it's moving, with a biblical foundation, understanding that God is true, that His Word, the Bible, is truth. It's God inspired words. He gave us a revelation of Himself and of His plan for this world in the Holy Bible. And so when we read it with spiritual eyes, you must be born again. You have to have that spiritual life in order to understand spiritual things. And so when you're born again through faith in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, once you have that foundation laid, and you start to study the scriptures, you start to see what it is that God has planned for this world, where it's heading towards. And then when you look at when you step outside the Bible and look around you at the world itself, you start to see those plans come into fruition. You start to see things moving in the direction that the Bible said it would. And of course, that's been going on since history began. But in this current day and age, I feel like we're really seeing a hastening of events, a speeding up of events. Some of the things that the Lord talked about were not possible for 2,000 years, or at least they weren't brought about. But within the last 150 years or so, we've seen a lot of things that point towards the culmination of all of history and the return of Jesus Christ. We've seen the reformation of Israel. We've seen earthquakes and famines and pestilence in many places. We've seen like birth pains, things speeding up and getting worse. We've seen evil men wax worse and worse. We've seen our politicians calling for a new world order, a one world government. We've seen the formation of the United Nations. We've seen knowledge and travel increase drastically, which was prophesied in the book of Daniel. So we see all these things coming to pass, and it leads one to naturally think, okay, what's coming next? Where are we heading here? And I think once you understand the Bible and then you start looking at the world, you can see where we're going. We're moving towards this cashless one world system, where all will be required to take a mark, and you won't be able to buy or sell without it, and it'll be a tyrannical, fascist, socialist type government. And so I'm really just trying to outline that in these series of videos to show you how I came to believe these things, because most of my learning came through documentaries, and then also some books which I mentioned throughout the series of videos here, and just random research online. But most of the information I have came through documentaries, so I'm taking you through many of those same documentaries and showing you the process of my thinking, showing you why I believe these things to be true, and why I believe that the world we're living in is fulfilling biblical prophecy, why it's going in the direction it's going. And so we've spent a lot of time here looking at the theory of evolution and how that kind of undergirds the world system, the world philosophy, and how it's a lie. It's an attack on the scriptures. It's an attack on faith. It's an attack on the Creator God. and how true, actual science, logical, reasonable science, done properly without bias, points towards an intelligent designer, points towards a creator. And we went through a lot of different videos showing that, and so now we're wrapping up here with the Creatures That Defy Evolution, where it just shows the amazing intelligence of God, the beauty, the creativity, the wisdom, so on and so forth. So without, I'm just kind of rambling on here. If you're on video 40 here, if you're with me on video 40, you've heard all this stuff on my previous videos. So I always say that I'm going to try to keep the introduction short, but then I feel like I have to kind of recap. I don't know if I'm going to just keep recapping. You know, one day we'll be at episode 250 and I'm still recapping everything. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable just jumping into it. Maybe I just need to trust that if you're watching episode 40, you've watched 1 through 39. So and that's my hope. You know, please don't watch these out of order, or it can be just kind of confusing or perplexing or overwhelming. I feel like you have to have these in the order they're watched. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. We left off approximately halfway through volume 3 of Creatures That Defy Evolution. We left off around the 38-minute mark, and we'll pick up right there. All right, so here we go. We left off. They were talking about dogs, and so we're picking up right at the end of that section.
Oh, Hudson just told me that he thinks dogs are the most incredible creatures of all. Speaking of dogs, there's an enormous sea creature with a dog-like face. It's on the endangered species list because there are only 2,000 left in the United States. But don't let its huge size scare you. This gentle giant is almost as friendly as Hudson here. Isn't that right, boy? If you travel on some of Florida's waterway inlets, where the freshwater underground warm springs flow, and meet the salt sea, you may stumble onto the giant manatee. Dive with the manatees, and you'll notice the waters are warm. Manatees are very sensitive to temperature, and they need warm water to survive. If the water temperature falls below 68 degrees for very long, the manatee will die. This unique creature is sometimes called the sea cow, and manatees have gained quite a following in Florida, as people have discovered how friendly and social this huge creature really is.
They're kind of cool looking.
They look kind of like a dog in their face, although the evolutionists say they look like an elephant. And they will say, there used to be elephants, and I guess the elephants decided to go back in the water, and they became manatees. And some even say they come back and forth. For a while they'll live in the water, and then they'll come back out. But they do have a few characteristics like an elephant. On their front flippers, they have like toenails that look kind of like the toenails on an elephant's foot. And their mouth, they have a very sensitive mouth, but it has, like an elephant's trunk, has like little fingers that can grab things, and the mouth, with its very sensitive whiskers, can get out there, and he can feel different things that they're eating, and they can arrange it, and they'll even hold it sometimes in their flippers. So they almost look, well, they use their flippers almost like hands many times, which is fascinating to see a big sea cow that do that kind of thing. And they have this wonderful big kind of a flat tail, and when they swim, the tail, it just kind of gently pushes up and down like this and glides them through the water. It looks like this big submarine coming right by as they swim by.
I wonder why
they guide themselves with their front fins. It's not like they're just working the same way. It's like they have a brain going to each one, and they can use one at a time, and they can move it different ways, and they can poke around with one, and they're intelligent. They're very intelligent. They don't have hair, but they have whiskers. And the difference between a hair and a whisker is, with a whisker, there are nerves attached. And some of the whiskers have as many as 4 different nerves attached that can tell the manatee different things. So it can sense food, it can sense different types of objects that it might want to not swim into, and many researchers believe that it can do that using these whiskers. They breathe through their nose. Most of the mammals that are underwater type sea-type creatures have the blowhole, like the porpoise and the whale, but the manatee, it breathes through its nose. And they can hold their breath a long time, and they can exhale almost everything in their lungs. It's like up to 90%, just all at one time. They'll come up, and they'll blow out their air, and out it goes. Sometimes they'll sleep on their back, too. They'll drop down to the bottom, and they'll sleep, and their heart rate can drop back to almost nothing when they're sleeping. And some researchers will tell us that it's one beat every 15 minutes, which that's amazing. But even during their sleeping times, their breathing is much longer in between times when they have to breathe. So it's like their whole system just slows down. Well, how would that happen? By accident. And that's what they really need to do if they're going to sleep. Otherwise, they'd have to be coming up to breathe every 2 minutes or every 3 minutes. They have the best immune system, probably, of all the different types of mammals. These wonderful creatures are constantly being damaged and even killed by motorboats, and the propellers just whacking them all up. And they have discovered that some of these, they heal up, even though they should be dead. You can see on their backs where propellers have just ripped them up, and some of their tails are kind of shredded. So the scientists have studied their blood. And some of the scientists say they have up to 90% white blood cells. And those are the ones that fight the disease. And so there maybe are some things here that we could learn from the manatee that would be helpful to us, with especially now with all these immune deficiency type diseases that mankind is encountering. Maybe some young person could get his PhD in manatee blood and figure out what's going on here and help and be a tremendous help to mankind and improving our immune system. And so it has these amazing abilities. Evolutionists teach that elephants went into the sea and became the manatee. If manatees are some sort of an elephant that went into the water, as the evolutionists teach, then there's big questions that come up. Why aren't there some intermediate forms here between an elephant and a manatee?
Why are there still elephants?
Why do we still have elephants if some elephants decided to go back into the ocean?
You know, the theory of evolution is so stupid. It's really just a fairy tale. These elephants, they just one day decided to go live in the ocean. And then they stayed in the ocean so long, they started to develop flippers. And their short little thin tail started to turn into a big, palm tree leaf type tail, and their trunk started to shrink, and then they became this thing. That's such an asinine, ridiculous, stupid story that somehow we've all just accepted that, this is science. It's ridiculous. And it's so offensively stupid. It just doesn't compute. Like, what would make that first elephant say, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna go live in the ocean. I'm just gonna stay in the water from now on. I'm just gonna chill here, and then hopefully my offspring will have developed some sort of aquatic trait that then they can pass on to the next. It's such a ridiculous thing. On another note, these things are pretty cool. I forgot all about manatees. Like, I don't even think I even knew exactly what they were. You see pictures of them, and I just always assumed they were some sort of seal type creature. They're kind of cool, man. I want to go swimming with some manatees.
We have manatees, we have elephants. We have nothing in between. We still have both of those. We don't see any manatees trying to come back out on land. We don't see any elephants deciding, I think I'm going to head into the ocean. I don't know how we can think like that, other than that God just made a manatee, and God used that particular form of an animal, a discrete entity. Like an elephant is a discrete entity. We talked about those in Volume 2 of Incredible Creatures. They are discrete. They have specific things that are very, very peculiar to them. The manatee has things very peculiar to it, and we have nothing that would bridge the gap between the two. And so it seems to me that that looks more like two particularly fascinating created entities here, even though they appear to have some relationship with their appearances. Let's have some proof. Let's have some evidence. I used to accept things just by faith that I was taught, and now I just look for the evidence. All right, let's find some evidence here. And there isn't any right there, because we've looked pretty carefully at that.
Yeah, where's the half elephant, half manatee?
New boating rules are now in place to help protect the manatee from prop damage. So hopefully, the manatees will be around for years to come. And hey, if the evolutionists are right, maybe one will crawl out of the water and become an elephant again. One of the most welcome insects in the garden is the butterfly. They are gentle, beautiful creatures, and often photographed for their stunning colors. Children and adults both collect them. Nice one.
So cheesy.
Some of the largest population of butterflies are from Central and South America. Some are tiny, just centimeters long, and other butterflies.
So I was just looking at these at the Ark Museum. Like, they're one of the most beautiful, fascinating insects ever. Like, the fact that each wing, like, the left side and the right side are, what do they call that? Asymmetrical. They're completely, the design is precisely the same on each side. It's so artistic. So it's like you're looking at a painting at each butterfly's wing. It's so beautiful, so creative, that your natural thought ought to be, wow, what a creator. What an amazing artist God we have. You know, and then Romans 1 says that thought ought to lead you to say, who is this God? I need to seek him out and find out what he expects from me, you know. But instead, men suppress the truth, push it down, don't want to deal with that thought. And it says they suppress the truth in unrighteousness because they're sinners, because they love sin, because they want to have sex and drink and cuss and swear and be selfish and be greedy. Don't want the thought of God. What if God says that I can't do those things? No. So they suppress the truth in unrighteousness and come up with ridiculous fairy tales. It's really what it is. Evolution is an adult fairy tale. It's the princess kissing the frog and the frog turning into a human. That's what this is.
Have recorded wingspans of almost 12 inches. Look close at the butterfly, and you'll see that it's obvious this little creature has been designed. Butterfly color patterns are so intricate and beautiful that they rival the world's best painters.
Isn't that a
But
moth?
interestingly, these amazing colors do not come from pigment. So where do these colors come from? Tiny little scales in each of the butterfly's wings are designed to reflect and refract different kinds of light.
I don't
Like
know the
light
difference
through a
between a
prism,
moth and a
each
butterfly.
ray of light shines through the scales, creating a stunning color show. So without light, the butterfly has very little color. But with light shining through the prism of its scales, it becomes a kaleidoscope of color. So get up close to a butterfly, and you'll discover another incredible creature.
The butterfly has one of the most interesting life cycles, I think, of any animal, because first of all, you have the egg. Now, there's a study needs to be done, a photographic study of the eggs of insects, because they're all different. There are many different colors. Some of them are just a speck, but you magnify that, and they have brilliant colors and shapes and textures. Every egg is different from every different kind of an animal. Almost no studies have been done on that. There's a good study for a young person, but in any event, you have the egg, and then let's say we're going to talk about a monarch butterfly. Well, they're going to put their egg on a particular leaf. They like the milkweed plant. And so they put their egg on the kind of a leaf that when the egg hatches and you get your caterpillar, the caterpillar wants to eat. Well, most caterpillars, that stage of the butterfly life, are engineered to eat only one particular kind of leaf. Like the monarch likes the milkweed leaf. So if the butterfly puts the egg on the wrong kind of a leaf, they'll die of starvation. They'll eat the egg, What's left of the egg, the shell, it has lots of protein in it, and that gets it started. So here's a little mystery. How does the butterfly, each different kind of butterfly, know exactly what leaf or what plant to put their eggs on? It has a digestive system designed genetically to handle that type of food.
Wow.
So it eats these leaves, and then it grows, and some of them get large, and then it gets a certain size in a certain amount of time, and it decides, oh, it's time for me to go into my pupa or my chrysalis form. And then it like dissolves down into a mucousy, viscous, kind of a slimy material. And if you just looked at that, you would say, well, that's not alive. That's just a bunch of dead mush here. But it's alive. And it has a certain genetic bit of information going on it, which is different than the caterpillar had. So now we have like genetic information number 2 system. And while it is in this chrysalis form, a lot of things are happening. And that slimy matter in there is making itself into a butterfly. There's a name for that, and the name is metamorphosis. It comes from the Greek term. So a butterfly goes from being this caterpillar into the chrysalis, which is like nothing, and then in that, somehow another genetic system takes over, and here emerges a beautiful butterfly. When the butterfly is getting ready to hatch out of the chrysalis, the hard outside layer, it begins to change color. And it goes from a dark color to it's almost transparent. And you can actually see through that, and you can see the beginning colors in the wings of the caterpillar inside of that. And that, once that really begins, it only takes about 12 hours or so. But then...
There's some sermons in a butterfly. There's some preaching there, thinking about how both being born again and how the saints will be resurrected in glorified bodies. As Paul said, this mortal must put on immortality, the corruption must put on incorruption. So it's like we're in these corrupted bodies. We're like a worm, a caterpillar, and then we die and turn to mush, so to speak. And then when the Lord comes back, when the trumpet sounds, these bodies will be brought back in a glorified state. And what that glorified state is, I don't know, but if it's anything like the analogy the butterfly gives us, look at the difference between the caterpillar and the butterfly. It's so beautiful and so amazing. A caterpillar is just a worm, which is what we are. We're just worms. And then one day we're going to die, and then we're going to be those that are born again are going to be resurrected as butterflies, so to speak. And then there's also an analogy about being born again, how we're transformed into new creatures. We're translated from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light. We're children of wrath, like worms. And then we die in our union with Christ. We're buried with him and resurrected back to life. So that now we're new creatures. We're new creations. We have spiritual life. We're still in the same shell, but we got that butterfly inside of us now. We got that new genetic makeup in us. So butterflies are amazing. I'll bet you that's why the Lord did it that way, to give us that word picture. Like so much of nature is a word picture about a spiritual reality.
When the butterfly just completely breaks out of there, that's only a matter of about 2 minutes. And here it comes, and it emerges out like a miracle from that slime. Look what we have now. And then, of course, it can't fly immediately, so it has to get itself ready, and its legs are kind of have to unfold and come out. Its wings are all tied up, and then it starts pumping blood into the wings and expands the wings, and the wings will dry out. But it has to be 80 degrees or above for the little butterfly to fly. And then it knows, oh, I can't eat leaves anymore. It doesn't go over and try to use its proboscis to start chewing on a leaf. Now it has the genetic information to digest nectar. It knows I need to go to a flower and stick my nose or whatever it is down in there, and I'm going to drink the nectar. How does it know that? That is information. And evolution has no explanation whatsoever as to how you can put information into a system. Chemicals don't have information. They're just chemicals. How does it know where to go and what to eat? Where to go? There's a good question. How does it know to fly? I mean, it has been crawling around on a plant as a caterpillar, and it didn't fly. Didn't even think of flying. But now it's a butterfly. Why doesn't it just keep crawling around on the plant? How does it know, oh, I'm now a butterfly. I can fly. And then it takes off. How does a monarch butterfly know where to go when it flies almost 2,500 miles from Canada down into Mexico for the wintertime or in Southern California? Somehow they tag some of these little things. I don't know how they do this, but they've traced some of these butterflies. These monarchs migrate up to 2,500 miles, maybe a little more than that. How does an insect know, okay, it's time for me to head south? And then it knows where to go, and it knows how to get there. How does a butterfly fly into the wind?
Right.
We ask a flight expert that's an insect flight.
That's what I was just thinking. Like, a butterfly is what? It's lighter than a piece of paper, right? With a big gust of wind, how does it direct itself to where it needs to go? How's it not just carried about everywhere with the wind? That's crazy. How does it go against the wind?
Expert, how does a butterfly fly into the wind? I mean, we had a 30-mile-per-hour wind coming across our backyard one day, and here comes this butterfly, and it's flying into the wind, but its wings aren't going bzzz, it's making headway, but it's like it's up here, and it's down here, and it's over here, and can a butterfly find pockets in the wind where there is no wind? What kind of a sensory apparatus does it have in its head that it knows, oh, I better get out of here, better get down here.
I gotta drop down a foot.
And the way they fly. There's some mysteries that maybe would help us with flight if someone could figure that out. Just thinking about a butterfly and all that it goes through to become a butterfly, through those 3 stages with different genetic makeups.
Wow, dude,
it
that's crazy.
It is a delightful, thoroughly educational, beautiful piece of artwork that our great Creator has done.
Butterflies are so beautiful. They are art in flight. They are design on exhibition. It's amazing to think that anyone could believe that something so gorgeous as a butterfly could happen as an evolutionary accident. Check out this car. This is the Jaguar XJR. Oh, so sweet. A mere $82,000, but it is loaded. Supercharged, liquid intercooled V8 engine. She generates nearly 400 horsepower. That means she's fast. Faster than a Corvette. When you drive the XJR, the enhanced self-leveling air suspension system automatically lowers the car's ride height at higher speeds to enhance stability and aerodynamic efficiency, making for an amazing driving performance. Just one of the amazing features that makes this car one of the most impressive in the world. It's obvious that this car has been designed, each part created to work together perfectly, so I can travel from one point to the other in style. Wish you were mine. What a ride. No one would ever believe that a beautiful car like this happened by random chance, or was a product of some cosmic accident. Why, that would be an insult to Jaguar's fine car designers. But somehow, when it comes to animals, nature, and you and me, some insist on believing that it was an evolutionary accident that created all we see around us. Sadly, even after all we've learned about these incredible creatures, Darwin's theory of evolution continues to be taught in our schools as scientific fact. But is the theory of evolution science? We put that question to Dr. Martin.
What is true science? See, there's 2 different kinds of science, really. There's what's called operational science or operative science, and there's what's called forensic science. Now, operational science is what we can do in the lab. We can do it, and I can do it, and you can do it, and we'll mix the same things together. We'll come up with the same results if we do it right. But then you have forensic science, and that is really what macro Big Bang type evolutionary science is. Because what are we doing with that? Well, we have some clues. We have we have some fossils. And what's a fossil? Well, it's a dead creature. So you have to get it to life before it can become a fossil. So that they're really stopped right there. But let's say we have the fossil. Well, what does that tell us? Well, it doesn't really tell us anything, except when you look with your worldview glasses, and you're looking through your worldview, and you've already decided, I think the universe is old. Well, then you're going to interpret the information, whether it's a fossil or a living creature, that has to be old. That has to be a process here. But if you look through, let's say, biblical worldview glasses, and you are already, one of your assumptions is this universe is young. The Bible teaches it's young. Then you're going to interpret the information that way. So really, it's a worldview.
And like Hovind says, or I don't know if Hovind says, but you can infer from all these videos we watch, if you were to just objectively look at, okay, here's a bunch of fossils, what do you know? Something died, a bunch of things died, and they were buried quickly. Because, if you or I die, or if your pet dies, or a bird dies, or a deer dies on the side of the road, or something dies in the woods, why doesn't that fossilize? It's scavenged by, or whatever that's called. Yeah, scavenger. Other animals come and eat and pick at it. It decays and turns to dust and fades away. Why isn't it becoming a fossil? It needs to be buried quickly, so that there's no decay or rot or scavenging. And there's something called lithification that I don't really know what that is, but I think I've heard one of these guys talk about that. And so that needs to take place. So all you know is, okay, a bunch of things died and were buried quickly. And of course, because we have a biblical framework, we can look back and go, hey, that sounds like the flood. Bunch of things died quickly and were buried. That's all you know from looking at bones, and then they'll say, but we date them, and like Hovind says, that they don't date them with carbon dating like they pretend. Carbon dating gives a wide variety of different ages. Some of those woolly mammoths, like one part of the woolly mammoth was 5,000 years, one part was 20,000 years. You get such the potassium argon method, 200-year-old lava flows are dating at 2 million years old, and the rate of decay is not constant because the atmosphere, the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, has not reached equilibrium state. If you read Collapse of Evolution, I think, Scott Hughes, I think he goes into detail about that, or maybe it was Henry Morris's book, or I don't know where that is, but you can look into that. Like there's reasons carbon dating can't work, and so they look at these fossils and they go, oh wow, these must be really old. Why would you think that? Well, then they go, well, we found it in this Cretaceous period of dirt. So, and then we learned from Hovind that was just invented. Who was it? Was it Lyell? Or somebody pre-Darwin created the geologic column and just assigned dates to them. Just thought it up. It's imagination. It doesn't exist in the world. There's nowhere where you can go dig and find those layers in the order that they say they're supposed to be in. But they use those layers to date the bones, and then they use the bones to date the layers. So there's circular reasoning. It's insanity.
Situation here with using forensic science, calling it science, because the textbooks do, but that's really not an accurate definition of true science, because true science, and most textbooks have the definition of true science in them. It's reproducible, experimentally verifiable type situations here, and nobody was there. How can you reproduce the Big Bang? You can't do that in a laboratory. What we can do in a laboratory is prove that explosions seem to tend to make things more chaotic, not more ordered. I don't know of any explosions that you can make things get better with an explosion, okay? So there's all these unexplainable things because we're basically looking at calling something that's not really science. Actually, it's really speculative philosophy when we're talking old universe, Big Bang type things. That's really it's metaphysical naturalism is another word for it. But it's an idea, and ideas have consequences.
some creatures are so strange, so different, so bizarre. It's like they're from another planet. Here's a creature that most of us will never see. And once you check it out, you'll be glad.
There's a little sea creature called the cuttlefish, and many people have heard of cuttlebone, which you might have in your bird cages at home. But this little creature, they get to be about a foot long, the average one, but yet some of them off the Australian coast get to be up to 3 feet long. But they're amazing because they have a skin that is completely different than anything other than things in their same family, which would be things like the squid or the octopus. They can change the color, the texture of their skin in like a split second. Just like that. I mean, their whole body can go from red to green, just like that.
It's crazy.
And they have these different types of little sacs. They call them pigment sacs, and with muscles around them. And these tiny little things, when the muscles contract, they squeeze the sac up in such a way that it turns a certain color like a little disc. So their body is just completely covered. They're called chromatophores, with these little discs, but they can make them appear in different colors. And then they have different types of color mechanisms. They have one, they're called iridophores, and those reflect light. So they're using the same types of reflection of light that perhaps a butterfly wing does when they reflect light and show the colors. And then they have others called leucophores, and the leucophores are the white ones, and they have little white dots all through them. So that some of the colors that they make, they're mixing different mechanisms to come up with the color they want. Incredible, just incredible. And they have emotions. They'll get angry. And when they get angry, they might turn red. They'll turn their whole body red, just boom, just like that, and they're red. And then maybe if they get fearful, they'll turn a green or a yellow, or they might just drop down to the ocean floor and turn the color of the sand, or they might even have little papillae, little things that stick up on their skin, and they'll mimic a rock, or sometimes they'll even mimic kelp, like they have these 8 tentacles here in front in their face, and they will move them to shape and turn them green, and they'll just float along with the kelp. They have what's called neutral buoyancy. These little animals can actually pump gas or water into their bone. And so if they want to hover in the water, they take a certain amount of water out of their bone or put a certain amount of air into their bone, and they can stay here. Or they can squirt the water into the bone and just drop down quickly. And they think, they actually can think, and they can see very well. Matter of fact, they have a pupil. It's like a W-shaped pupil. It almost looks like Batman when you see a picture of their pupil. And that pupil, they have binocular vision. This strange-looking little creature, and its eyes can focus in on one thing. Both eyes can focus together like we do as humans, and so they can spot their prey, and then they want to come up here and they want to kind of confuse their prey before they eat it. So some of these have the ability, it's like they turn on strobe lights on their head. And here comes these lights. It almost looks like the old movie theaters had those lights that went all the way around. Here they go with these lights. And what they think they'd like to eat is looking at that thing and it's, oh my, what is that? It almost hypnotizes them. And they turn on all their mechanisms and start shining their lights. And what might this other thing be thinking that they want to eat? I mean, it looks like a UFO or a extraterrestrial or something just coming in there. It has 2 flaps of skin here on the sides of its head, and hidden under that are 2 long tentacles, but they're different. They're feeding tentacles, and they blow them out like at a party. You get those little things you blow and it goes out. Well, that's what they do with these. They just blow them out and catch their prey, and it's just in an instant, boom, and they get it and they bring it right back, and then the tentacles grab it,
That
and then they can
is
feed themselves.
crazy.
How does all that happen?
What
looks to be
kind
like
of
this
animal
primitive
is
creature
this?
can we, through evolutionary science, first of all, explain how this thing could do this?
Man.
Where did it come from? Where is it going? Why does it have these abilities that it has? They think, and they see, and they come to conclusions about things, and they know how to stalk their prey, and they know when is the right time to turn on the lights, or to shoot out their tentacles that grab the food. They're making decisions. How can we explain that through mindless, random chance processes? I can't do it personally.
The creativity of the Lord is stunning. Dude, I need a cuttlefish. And a manatee.
Our next animal is a really sharp dresser. In fact, he always looks like he is ready for a night on the town. We're talking about penguins. They are dressed to impress, and they're a favorite attraction of wildlife tours and zoos everywhere. Penguins are just cute. They walk upright, are playful, innocent, and so entertaining. They have got to be one of the most unusual birds in the world. Did you know that penguins only live south of the equator in the Antarctic? There are none in the North Pole. Unusual. Anyway, penguins range in size from little ones about a foot tall to the emperor penguin, which is about 3 feet tall. However, fossils have been discovered of emperor penguins, which are over 8 feet tall. Imagine meeting one of those on a walk. When the cold season comes, most animals want to head to a warmer climate, but not the emperor penguin. He will head closer to the South Pole, into the cold. The emperor penguin is about to undertake a Herculean task: to lay their egg and raise their young in a climate that is one of the most forbidding on the planet. It's an achievement that is nothing short of incredible. So what are you going to order?
The female will lay an egg, puts it on the male's feet, and then the male keeps that egg on his feet, and he has an egg pouch that kind of goes around the egg, and it keeps that egg at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we'd say, well, so what? Well, sometimes in the winter, down there in the Antarctica, the temperature is 100 degrees, even more than that, below zero, with 100-mile-per-hour wind, which is an incredible wind chill, and that egg is only a couple inches off the ice, and that male penguin keeps that egg warm and keeps it on his feet. If he gets it off the feet, it'll freeze in about 2 minutes. So he has to keep that on his feet. Now, the female gives him the egg, and then she takes off. She's going to go eat. So she walks across the ice pack, and sometimes at this point the ice pack may be 30, 40 miles long. And she has to walk out there. She goes off into the ocean. And she will be eating and feeding in the ocean for 2.5 months. And meanwhile, here's Daddy Penguin, and he's taking care of the egg. But he can't eat, and he doesn't drink for up to 2.5 months. He loses up to 40% of his body weight while he's taking care of that egg. That's his main function. I mean, you think standing for 2.5 months on an ice pack with 100 below zero, 100-mile-per-hour wind chill, and their feet don't freeze? I mean, that's a miracle in itself, the way God designed that. All right, so Mama's out there feeding, Daddy's taking care of the egg, it's 100 below zero, and these penguins live in huge flocks. And so what the male does is, he will be on the outside of the flock where it's cold, and he puts his back to the wind, and he starts getting cold. You know, I gotta warm up. So he starts moving in toward the center of the big flock. And then other ones will move from the center out to the outside. So they keep rotating out. And so none of them freeze. They know, okay, now it's my turn to go out and get cold for a while, and my turn to go warm up for a while. And they do all this. Now here's Mom out here swimming and eating. And all of a sudden, at some kind of an unknown signal, she decides, oh, I gotta get back. My chick is almost ready to be hatched out. And so Mama Penguin heads back home. They're supposedly a bird that lost its ability to fly. Well, the evolutionists haven't come up with any ancestors for the penguins. So what kind of a bird was it that became a penguin that lost its ability to fly? But they really do fly because they fly underwater. And you watch them in some underwater shots with their fins, and they just use those fins like wings underwater. And they can get such force that they can jump out of the water up onto the ice pack. And some can go as far as 30 feet. They come, whoa, they pop up out of the water and land up here. Well, now she's been out in the ocean for 2.5 months, sometimes even a little longer than that. And now it's winter, so the ice pack has grown. And so now maybe instead of 30 or 40 miles, she might have 50 or 60 miles of ice pack to walk across to get back. Well, now here's this whole flock of thousands of male penguins, each with an egg. How is she going to find Daddy? How is she going to find her mate? Well, somehow or another, and the scientists think that they understand the call. And yet you think about that, here are thousands of male penguins, whatever they do to chirp, and here comes Mama Penguin listening for her particular male, and she can find her male. Now here's one of the mysteries of this whole thing. More often than not, she goes back and finds her male on the very day that the chick is born. How can that be? She's got to walk over 50, 60 miles of ice pack and come out of the ocean and find where they are. I mean, you're thinking, well, there's a flock here, just how many? Takes up a couple football fields maybe, in all these miles and miles of ice. And yet she can find her male. She does it right on time. Now she has brought back with her partially digested fish from the ocean. And she carries them with her in her stomach. And now the scientists aren't exactly sure how she does that so that the fish doesn't rot and it doesn't really digest. It's preserved in a form that acts as food for the chick. Some scientists say maybe they have some sort of an antibiotic that they manufacture so that the food doesn't just rot, but they get it back. And now Daddy and Mommy Bird take care of the baby bird until spring. And now that the ice is melting back, and they take the baby and they go swimming. These penguins spend most of their life in the open water, in the open sea. There are some of these penguins that are in the ocean 9 months out of the year. That means they have to sleep in the ocean, and nobody has observed that, which is an incredible thing right there in and of itself. They're also playful. They'll find an ice slide.
Nobody's observed
And they'll
it.
slide down that slide. They'll waddle right back up to the top, slide down again. So they like to play. Sometimes when you see penguins, it's almost like they're playing follow the leader. They just follow each other. Boom, 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 boom. Up they go. And what are they thinking? How do they decide who's going to be first? I think maybe the penguin is an animal that's just made for us to enjoy.
Your vanilla ice cream, sir.
Thank you. Vanilla ice cream. I love vanilla. Did you ever wonder where vanilla comes from? Well, if not for our next incredible creature, vanilla wouldn't even exist. Vanilla.
In Mexico, there is a little bee. It's a little tiny bee. It's not a whole lot bigger than a flea. It's a true bee. It doesn't have a stinger, but it is a bee. It's called the Melipona bee, or the Melipona bee. And this little bee is closely identified with something that all of us have enjoyed from time to time called vanilla. And I will ask people, do you know where vanilla comes from? And they will say, oh yeah, the vanilla bean. And then we'll say, well, where does the bean come from? Well, it comes from a tree. Well, no, not really. It comes from an orchid. And the vanilla orchid grows up a tree as a vine. And here is the problem. The vanilla orchid only blooms one morning out of the year. Now, they don't all bloom on the same morning, but it'll bloom 2.5, 3 hours. And then by afternoon, it wilts, and it can't be pollinated. But why is there a problem here? Well, because the vanilla bean pollen is covered with a little septum down inside the flower, so the pollen can't get out. And so God made a little bee called the Melipona bee that knows exactly what to do to pollinate the vanilla flower so that we can get the vanilla bean, so that we can have vanilla, which most of us enjoy. And this little bee will come up to the flower, and it knows how to land on the flower, push up the septum, find the little entrance there, and go in. And then when it comes out, it has pollen with it, and it'll go to the next one. And this little bee was made for the orchid, and without the bee, you just don't have the vanilla bean. Now, that came up way back in the day of Hernando Cortez. And Cortez, when he came over here, went to Mexico, liked vanilla, took some back with him to Europe, and then for 300 years, they grew vanilla plants. I guess they did it with cuttings because they didn't get any beans. So, like, that was like 1519. In 1836, a man named Morin decided, I'm going to go to Mexico. I'm going to find out why they get the vanilla bean in Mexico. We don't get the vanilla bean in Europe. So he went to Mexico. He sat down with the vanilla flowers and watched them. And all of a sudden, one day, he hears this, and he looks, and there's that little melipona bee, and he saw it land, lift up the septum, find a little entry point, goes in, and I now know why they get vanilla in Mexico and we don't get it. And so here comes artificial pollination. And then they started growing vanilla in the European areas, and they could get it because they had to artificially pollinate it, because that little bee is the only insect that knows how to pollinate that particular orchid. So the orchid and the bee are made for each other. They had to both be made together at the same time. Otherwise, in one generation, the vanilla is going extinct because there's nothing there to pollinate it if the little bee isn't there. But if the little bee doesn't have the information to know how to get into the flower, which other insects apparently don't know how to do that, well, then you still get an extinct flower. So they had to be made together. So I think that shows that our Creator has made these things in such a way that if we carefully study them, we're face to face with a dilemma here. Could this be an accident? Or could this have been created like it is? And I think He wants us to say, hey, look at this. This was created just like it is, and then He gets the glory, and He gets the thanks for doing that.
Wow, that's amazing. Who knew? Without the melipona bee, there would be no vanilla plant, and therefore, no vanilla. Thank you, little bee. Each of the animals we've looked at has been designed to function flawlessly in its environment. It's obvious that behind each creature is a designer. But who is genius enough and brilliant enough to design such wonderful creatures?
Well, we spent some time talking about incredible creatures that defy evolution. And they really
the Lord
do.
has made
Everything we've looked at is created
good
and designed.
and amazing.
It has purpose. It has function. It has a coordination of so many things that have to all be there. They have to all be there at the same time. When we look at the design that we see in everything that we've looked at, everything in nature, from plant to animal to rock, there's design. Well, that seems to say to me there is a designer. If you have a design, you have a designer. If you have a piece of art, you have an artist. If you have a creation, you have a creator. We have a creation. We have a creator. He designed us so that we would fellowship with Him. That's why He created us. That's why He designed us, so that He could have us to bring Him glory and to fellowship with. And so He offers us this free gift of salvation through His Son that paid the terrible price of His passion. But then He didn't stay dead. He came up out of the tomb at the resurrection. So we have a risen Lord who is our Creator and is our Redeemer. And He loves us, and He wants a relationship with each of us.
And you got Christians all over telling you that that's a reality, that we know Him. The living Lord, the living God. We've experienced Him. We've spiritually seen Him and heard from Him and tasted of Him. We know He is real. We know this, and we try to tell other people, and people are in their stupor of sin, in their delusion, which evolution helps to cloud their vision. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but
Well, there you have it. So the next time you're spending some time out in the beauty of nature, take a good look around. Every tree, every flower, every animal tells an incredible story. A story of design, of purpose, and of destiny. I'm David Hames. I'll see you next time. Come on, Hudson. Let's go, boy. Come on, boy. Let's go. Good. That's okay.
then a cold shudder has run through me, and I've asked myself whether I may have not devoted myself to a fantasy. Alright, so that finishes the series on creatures that defy evolution, which my biggest takeaway from that was just awe and like worship, sometimes almost in tears, thinking about the wisdom, the incredible magnificence of his wisdom and intelligence, and his creativity and his beauty, and just everything that the Lord has created. It's stunning, you know. And so that's my biggest takeaway from that. A perfect follow-up series to the, you know, to the just a great order of videos that we did there with the Hovend series, the 7-part series there, which was very informative, and just a lot of rock solid information that we can use to show how foolish evolution is and how true creation is from a scientific standpoint. And then we moved into the complexity, the irreducibly complex functionality of life, even on a molecular level, with unlocking the mysteries of life and icons of evolution. And then this was a perfect follow-up to show the beauty and the creativity and the wisdom of God and the intelligence of God with this 3-part series here on creatures. And so we got one more here on evolution we're going to do. We're going to watch Ben Stein's Expelled. That'll kind of wrap up our series on evolution, and then we'll move into some other things. But I look forward to that. I don't know how long that one is. It's been a while since I've watched it. I'm assuming it's probably about 2 hours long, so it'll probably take us about 2 different times to get through it. But yeah, it's been a good series so far, and as always, I really appreciate you guys watching with me, and I love you, and Lord willing, we'll talk to you next time.